And then you've got Great Lakes, who stepped up and said that they'd pre-buy a number of the produce that we'd grow on the farm. So you've got a great collaboration of public and private people coming in. And I think what's exciting about what's happening in Cleveland is, echoing Peter's point, is we're positioned, or we can position ourselves as a national leader on this front. And you do hear people turning to it, be it for the things that are happening with the evergreen cooperatives and green city growers, or the things that are happening with the E4S events, which Peter's just a maestro at. So I'm here to look at it from a neighborhood perspective and how you can really take urban agriculture, you can empower folks, and you can turn what was 6 acres of really fallow land into something that's beautiful. And I encourage everybody to drive on by it. It's at West 24th and Bridge Avenue.
If you don't know where that is exactly, there's a very large CMHA facility that's about 10, 12 stories tall. 15. And behind that, between that and the river, is this 6 acres that has a really nice view of the city, if for no other reason to go over and take a view of the city.
And it's right in the shadow of the West Side Market, which will be celebrating its centennial in 2012.
Ifoma.
Yes. My name is Ifoma Ezepoe, and I work for the City of Cleveland Economic Development Department. I happen to work for the best administration. We actually got invited to the National League of Cities because we had so many other municipalities and regions of the country interested in what our mayor is doing. We are looking to encourage urban agriculture as an economic engine. We recognize that we have food desert needs in Cleveland, and so my boss, Tracy Nichols, she came up with this program. The Gardening for Greenbacks program is simply a grant and a financial incentive, a $3,000 grant that we give to any entrepreneurial-minded individual who is willing to start a business, a market garden business. In Cleveland, we require that they go through the formal business planning process, so that we believe that a failure to plan is a plan to fail. So we want to see a business plan. We want to know that they understand all the different aspects of managing and running a successful business enterprise. And we have assembled technical assistance experts from Ohio State University Extension. We have other community partners. We are very active on the Food Policy Coalition, and we do tap into all the other entities around. We see all the work that is being done in the city as complementary to the work we do, and so we provide the financial incentive to make it possible for individuals who their only reason for not getting into this is financial, to tell them we would help you buy the initial fixed assets, the farming equipment that you need, the rototillers, but we want to make sure that you've thought through how much you need to grow and where you plan to sell this. We also help them with the access to markets. And so we make other loans and other grants to retail businesses, to restaurants, and we include in the contract for both parties a matchmaking per se, where we ask the restaurants to show us that they are buying from the local vendors, and we also ask the local vendors to show that they are selling to the restaurant. And so we are essentially creating a food system that is sustainable and that will continue to feed itself. We want to see Cleveland become self-sufficient in food production while also growing industry. So we want them to make money and live well while doing good and supplying nutrient-dense food to Clevelanders.
Ifoma Ezepoe, thank you so much. Director Boggs.
Yes. Dan, Ohioans buy $43 billion worth of food every year, and these are non-discretionary purchases, but only about 2 or 3% of that money is spent on locally produced food. So economically speaking, if we could just double or triple the amount of local food that's produced and purchased by Ohioans, we would create billions of dollars of economic activity and thousands of jobs. And so Governor Strickland, realizing this, created the Food Policy Advisory Council by executive order in 2007. And we brought together people from the private sector, higher education, the universities, nonprofits, state agencies, and interesting things happen when you bring all those types of people together. It either explodes or you get a lot of creative ideas. And fortunately, we got a lot of creative ideas that have literally transformed the Department of Agriculture. I mean, we have an Office of Sustainable Agriculture now. We have a real strong program in aquaculture, trying to encourage aquaculture and seafood. When we have a $10 billion deficit in this country, it's ridiculous that we're not using our urban areas, transforming some of the warehouses to grow fish and shrimp and other seafood. We are purchasing a mobile poultry processing unit so that we can take it around to small farms throughout Ohio who don't have access to the large processing companies. And so, as I've said, under the direction of the Food Policy Advisory Council, the department has really begun to work on the local foods effort. Just this year in the State of the State Address, the governor outlined the Neighborhood Harvest Program, which is an attempt to make sure that every citizen, every child, every senior in Ohio has access to affordable fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables, no matter where they live. And we have food deserts in our urban and rural parts of Ohio, and we want to diminish them, we want to defeat them, and create the type of access that people really need in the state.
I want to ask about the state. How much of a transformation has this been over the last 5 or 10 years as urban agriculture has emerged from the state's perspective? I mean, was it sort of for a while were you just thinking, I don't know what it is they're doing. We've got these big farms we're trying to support here, and a major. I mean, agriculture has long been one of Ohio's primary industries. And I mean, how does the state view these very, very small farms, these microscopic farms almost, as compared to?
They're the future of the state. I mean, the jobs are going to be created by the small farms, and that not just the farms, but the processing that comes. Once you produce, you need the processors, and that's where you add value and you create additional employment. So really, cities like Cleveland are leading the way in terms of showing the state what can be done at the local level. We cannot impose plans upon the cities. They have to come up with their own destiny, which way they want to go. We're just there to try to help and try to bring them together. The best thing is we have 14 local food policy advisory groups in Ohio. I think that might be more than any other state. And it's the collaboration, it's the creativity that flows when they talk to each other that really helps out a great deal.
If you look at World War II, also it was the state and the government that sponsored these victory gardens. And Kentucky Gardens, which is one of the oldest urban gardens in Cleveland, started as a victory garden after World War II. So you look at that piece of parcel right now, which is in Ohio City at Fairview Park. It is vibrant, it's full of life, and you've got people who are growing their food on these different plots. So there is a role for government in urban agriculture, and they've been at it for a while.
I think a lot of people are wondering right now, Peter McDermott, if you can actually make a living as an urban farmer. or is it just a very expensive hobby?
Well, a number of us in the room have probably heard the joke about the farmer who wins the lottery, and they ask him, what are you going to do with all the money? And he says, well, I guess I'll keep farming till the money runs out. But I think there is a shift that's happened over the last couple of decades, but most acutely probably over the last 10 years, which is really the rise of entrepreneurial farming. And when I say entrepreneurial farming, I mean looking at farming as a business with an entrepreneurial mindset. And so in the urban context, that means essentially growing high-value crops and direct marketing. So it's growing crops that you can grow, that'll fetch a good price at the market, and that you can grow, a lot of in a small amount of space. So it's growing, baby arugula as opposed to watermelons. And then really it's also looking at how can you get the most cents on the dollar for what you're selling, which is why I think having outlets like farmers markets, creating CSAs, working with restaurants, are critical to support small-scale urban agriculture, because there really is very, very little room for the middleman at this point. So I would say it's possible. I mean, we've been working on a little less than a half an acre, and like I said, this is our second season.